And if you could change one thing, if you could just make it happen, what
Yes.
things would you change? Could you just talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes, it's a very difficult question, and it's actually really interesting at the same time because there are so many things that need to change. And there are things that can be easily changed and some things that are very difficult to change. So if I could, first of all, I would change the law and everything related to law and religion, because in Lebanon, for example, at least, law is mainly based on religion, and there are so many patriarchal norms that still persist in religion. But then again, you may want to change the law, but there is still the culture that persists. So it's hard to really tell at first because someone will want to change the law, but the most difficult thing to change nowadays is the culture. And if I could change the way the culture is and the way we communicate with each other, because I believe nowadays there is a lot of there is actually a lack of meaningful conversation in society, and people who want to talk about subjects that are as taboo really fear to be judged. And I still struggle a lot with the culture and the communication. So if I could change this, I would change definitely the way people think about women, and because there are so many people I talk to who do not believe gender inequality is such a big deal, and to focus on it would probably bring more positive discrimination, or even worse, make gender distinction persist. Yet gender equality is such an easily achievable goal compared to war, for instance. And to this day, culture is the number one obstacle we all face. So if I could change things, I would definitely start with the law, which is the basis of everything in their society nowadays, and the culture especially, because I would change this as well through communication, and that's why I try to do every single day and try to really talk and dare to talk about subjects that people are afraid to talk about. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, it makes all kinds of sense, and I appreciate you bringing in the fact that culture is such it's like a multiplier, It
Yes,
makes everything
exactly.
very difficult to do. It's like, I don't know that much about your culture, but as I hear you talk, I'm imagining that there's so many things from the past for hundreds, maybe even several millennia, that are so deeply rooted in the culture that, changing those kinds of things is just very, very daunting. Not impossible, but daunting.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
So thank you again, Melanie, for shedding the light on some of these areas that you care about, that you're passionate about. And I'm wondering, I know that you work at the UN, and can you tell us a little bit about what you're currently working on there, and what drew you specifically to work on the Women's Leadership Program?
Okay. Yes, for sure. I mean, it's certain that my passion for human rights and sociology and contributing to the enhancement of our world brought me to work for the UN. It was certainly a childhood dream, and I specialized in humanitarian assistance initially. But life brought me to Geneva at the heart of multilateral diplomacy, and the Women's Leadership Program was handed out to me. It was a very fresh and broad new program, and that was launched in 2015 by my colleague, with the mandate to enhance women's participation in negotiations. So my current task and my positions are quite broad, though. I organize high-level events, inviting high-level personalities, such as Nobel Peace Prize, and with the purpose to deliver inspirational stories, talking about leadership and how civil society can lead also the way things are in our society. And the Women's Leadership Program is a specific program that has the mandate to build the skills, knowledge, and capacities of women and government officials accredited to the UN and its entities, as well as civil servants and people from the private sector. The core activity under the Women's Leadership Program is to provide capacity building for self-reflection, learning and development, and increase women's participation in decision-making and in politics. It has been expanded to people from other backgrounds who wish to undertake leadership positions too. And I believe this is how we met, through a women's leadership workshop and retreat that was done in Stockholm. Yeah.
Yes.
So, it's all about communicating, developing capacities of women, and also providing inspirational stories so that people can also be part of major changes on a global scale.
I know when I met you at the conference in Sweden, your presence just seemed to radiate.
Oh, thank you.
It did, and I think, as I recall, Melanie, many of the women in that circle commented to you, something similar, and I just, your position and the work that you're doing there is so needed and so necessary. And it's just, like you said, it's a blessing that you're able to be there to help lift these women leaders into a new place so that they can shine a light for the rest of us. So thank you for that work.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're so welcome. Another question I'd like to ask you in relation to the work that you just talked about, because this is big work. This is not something that's going to happen overnight, of course. And so I'm wondering, Melanie, what are the things that you think that would help you achieve some of the goals that you laid out?
Yes. So, mainly since I work on the Women's Leadership Program, I use the UN as a platform to really reach out to as many people as I can. That's my starting point in a way. I want to be able to use this platform to be able to reach out many people. And since UNITAR is an entirely self-funded organization, independent from the Secretariat of the United Nations, this means that we rely on donor contributions. And our main donors are governments, permanent missions, mainly who wish to associate their names to this project and who believe in the impact of capacity building and gender equalities. As I do not have a personal brand on my own to advertise, which I would love to have in the future, I wish to appeal to donations through this interview, perhaps, and invite whoever wishes to contribute or discuss solutions and projects or even partnerships to reach out to me to be able to discuss these things. I believe in partnership, union, to help achieve a larger impact. So far, this program has been struggling to be implemented because of lack of contributions. And one of the major issues we face is that organizations want to do these workshops, want to enhance the skills of their women's, but always blame the fact that there is no funds or it's not their decisions to send women to participate to conferences. So there are so many excuses out there, but the way to partner and to contribute would really be something very helpful. And I can say that because, first, the reaction you gave me as well yourself was that it really had an impact on some of the participants. But I do realize the impact myself as well when other participants come to me and telling me, oh, this workshop finally helped me not being shy anymore and made me realize how shy I was, or made me realize how many barriers I was imposing on myself and how nice and polite I was before and how I need to be more assertive and believe in myself. So I believe that capacity building and education is something really everyone needs to focus on, and help from partnerships would really is really needed. So this is how I shape my identity myself, through education and through capacity building. And I believe as well that what would help is communicating with other people. So in my daily life, I try as much as I can to believe I can make an impact. So what would help is for people to really communicate and discuss about gender inequality and stop being so judgmental in a way. I believe in communication, capacity building, and just really having discussions with people, creating new partnerships, and highlighting the importance of women's participation in negotiations, or gender equality, or the benefits of gender equality would really be something that is needed. So I hope I answered the question correctly.
Yes, you did. Thank you. Now, you mentioned many things in this question, so I just kind of want to unpack it a little bit. You mentioned UNITAR. Can you tell us what that acronym stands for, Melanie?
Yes, it's the United Nations Institute for Training and Research.
Okay, thank you.
It's the training arm of the UN, yes.
Yes. Okay, and so that's Unitar. And you talked about building a platform so that you can reach more people. You talked about funding. You talked about the kind of the stigma, which is connected to funding. I think there's still a general sense that women are less than, and we have to do, more to get to the table, that kind of thing. And you also talked about the importance of capacity building and communicating and having conversations with one another.
Yes.
Yeah. Did I get most of those things in?
Yes,
Okay.
correct.
Great.
Yes.
And, I think as you were talking, I was thinking about, I think Margaret Mead said, never doubt that a small group of people can change the world. It's the only way that change happens.
Exactly, yes.
Yeah, and these conversations that you're talking about, it really is one woman, one circle, one group at a time. And I'm just, again, just delighted that you are involved in this work. So thank you again for what you're doing and what you're sharing. And I'd love to ask you a question. We talked about this several months ago when we just chatted about the show. So this is a more personal question, not about your work per se, but a more personal question, Melanie. Is that okay if I ask you one of those?
Of course.
Okay. I would love for you to just talk a little bit about one or two or, some of the women in your life, women leaders in particular, who have influenced you and your leadership.
Wow. It's really interesting as a question, I must say. And it's very hard as well to answer because there are so many women at the same time, and paradoxically enough, there's not many women leaders that are portrayed in society, which makes people sometimes a bit lost when they have this question. So I don't want to sound cliche by saying this, but it's true that my mom was one of the major female figure I had growing up. And it could really sound cliche because everyone grows up with a female figure that is close to their family in a way. But my mom was really a very strong woman, and she really had a very tough background because she had to take care of her parents alone. She had to really work hard and set aside her education to be able to really provide for her own parents. And I've never seen her cry or being devastated. And I'm not saying that's a good thing at the same time, but I've seen her always very strong and very resilient, which really inspired me in my leadership journey because I realized that it's true that life will give you a lot of lemon. It's really how you deal with them that will shape your personality in a way. And her sister were quite strong women, and they were very. My aunt as well was very involved in protest when she was young, and she's very. She's a leader in her own heart, and those two women influenced me a lot. But if I have to speak about famous figures, I must say that maybe Rosa Parks and Oprah were two female leaders that inspired me for their determination and for embracing their challenges and doing something about it. And also, it really might sound silly, but when I was younger, I grew up watching a lot of TV shows. And these TV shows had a lot of female protagonists. They were goofy and who were embracing their goofiness and clumsiness and at the same time being comfortable with it. And I do believe this is needed because it really allowed me to be very comfortable with my own self. So I also grew up watching the Powerpuff Girls, which is an animated cartoon and might sound really innocent, but the fact to see that women had powers while at the same time being feminine and embracing their own femininity and characters was really inspirational for me because I really wanted to grow up being a superwoman, and this helped a lot in my determination.
Yeah, and what I think you're saying is that it helps to have role models. Even
course.
as a child, you don't think about your mom or your aunt or these figures that you're watching on TV. You don't think about them as role models, but they impress you in some way. Something about their spirit, something about, as you mentioned, how they overcome challenges, their determination. It just ignites something within us, doesn't it?
Yes, exactly. I mean, it's very silly to say it and to talk about cartoons and TV shows, but it actually really plays a major role. I mean, if you grew up watching tales where there are princesses waiting